Hi there, it's Rose Marcus. Thank you for joining me. Mars in Aries. Let me give you the scoop. Forging a new reality, it's exactly what we're doing. Okay. The transit of Mars, June 28th through January 6th of 2021. Typically, Mars takes 5 to 6 weeks to transit a sign, but because of the upcoming retrograde, September 9 to November 13, we will have 6 months of Mars in Aries. For 6 months, Mars is going to be firing something up. For 6 months, Mars is going to give you an opportunity to get something new off the ground. So, the brightest visibility for Mars is through the month of August. It grows stronger as the month advances, and it is setting up for the retrograde cycle and post-retrograde cycle that is coming up. The current Mars-Sun synod cycle started September 2nd, 2019 and extends to October 8th of 2021. So we're working under this pattern here. And a synod is when two planets in their orbit meet up by conjunction. The September 2nd point there, the synod started in the sign of Virgo, and that's the subject du jour, the topic that carries over this, this cycle. Virgo is the healing crises archetype. It is crises as a vehicle for growth. And in the fall of 2019, what was firing up, unbeknownst to us, was the coronavirus. We didn't see that until it hit with a vengeance during the peak Mars activation period of February-March 2020. This was when Mars was transiting Capricorn, forming conjunctions with the triple planets here, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Also at the beginning of the year, Ceres was in the sign of Capricorn. Ceres has moved on now. It's spending the rest of the year in Pisces. That's an exposure archetype. It's a mass consciousness archetype. Also joining the Capricorn group is Pallas Athena, which is staying very close to Saturn for the rest of the year. So this is just to demonstrate how the seeding time has great life, especially Mars in Aries brings life to whatever it is that will make it into our consciousness at some later point. Now we have two synods that are overlapping. We have the Sun-Mars. Sun is the creative principle. It is the creator archetype. It is the heart and center of being. The Sun brings importance or significance to whatever area of the chart is being activated. Now, Mars is the action assertion principle. You put the two of those together and you have an important experience taking place here. An important chapter is underway. And so that is lighting up a particular experience that is meant to is slated for intensified action. All right. And so Mars-Pluto is a primary pair. Pluto represents the soul, it represents the soul's desire for its own evolution. This is the big picture stuff. And Mars is the cutting edge or contemporary version of the will of the soul in action. So Pluto is the big picture. Pluto says, I desire, and Mars says, yep, boss, I'll go experience that for us. Mars embodies soul desires. Mars is the agent of the soul to create the action and experience that will bring information back to the soul that will help the soul to accomplish its own evolution. So this synod started with the Mars-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, March 23rd, 2020, and extending to March 3rd of 2022. Mars takes 2 years to go around the zodiac once, and Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn since 2008 and will continue to 2023, 2024. When Pluto travels through the sign of Capricorn, which it does in every 248 years, it swings its wrecking ball on any structure, system, or reality or consciousness that has outworn its usefulness. Capricorn is the archetype of time. It's the archetype of reality. So we are present now for an important intersection with our timelines, our personal timelines, and our collective timelines. So this is an important Mars-Pluto transit. Mars, during the time that Pluto is in Capricorn, Mars will make 8 revolutions or 8 subcycles of or 8 synods during this period. So these are various subchapters of our own evolution, and it's a very, very important timetable. The peak activations for Mars in 2020, February, March, and July 2020 through January 2021, the whole Mars in Aries cycle. So Mars will turn retrograde from September 9 to November 13. It starts at 28 degrees Aries. Mars is almost made it the whole way through Aries before it reverses motion, and it will back down to 15 degrees on November 13. If you have any natal planets in the cardinal signs between 15 and 29 degrees of cardinal, which is Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you are going to be at a threshold crossing or an intersection of significance in terms of what is happening for you in your own personal life journey. All right, so Mars in Aries is when the soul is firing up new instincts, new impulses, craving new experience. When Mars turns retrograde in Aries, the soul is in review. It is a gut check in terms of what the soul desires. Mars in Aries says, I desire. Mars retrograde in Aries says, wait a minute, do I really want what I have been reaching out for as of late? So retrograde is always a time to revisit and review, to go back over things. It is a time frame. This Mars retrograde is a time to rework it, to take a look at what you have launched and to see how things must be adjusted, or to check in with yourself to see, do you still want to proceed? Do you still want to do it? Do you still want to go in that direction? Do you still desire it? Are you still charged up about it? If you keep coming back to, yes, I am, then this Mars retrograde will be stoking the fire, will be adding more logs to the fire, so that by the time the retrograde cycle is done, you will have enough fuel in the tank, enough momentum to make it a strong start and to carry it the distance. All right, so Mars is a personal planet, and it's mostly about the personal life journey, but it is fascinating to look back at the previous cycles. Now, Mars takes a retrograde every 2 years, but it is rarely retrograde in the sign of Aries. And I have on the screen here for you the dates of the previous Mars and Aries retrograde cycles. So this is really fascinating stuff to note. 1909, August 23rd to October 24, started at 7 degrees Aries, backed into Pisces. 1941, like the cycle that we're experiencing right now, the entirety of the cycle retrograde took place in Aries, 23 degrees back down to 11. 1988, August 26 to October 28, again started in Aries, backed into Pisces. If you're born in 1941 and 1988, in the dates that you see on the screen here, you were born with Mars retrograde, and that is an intensification of an individuation process. You are meant to be living your life in some kind of unique way. It is a signature for an entrepreneur. It is a signature for for pulling back from herd mentality, for you to be in review for self and getting back in touch with the heart and center, the core of your being, and to realign with the soul's desires for your evolution. All right, so we've got those two things. Now, just to give you some information on these last cycles, 1909. Now, the Hudson Motor Company was founded during that period of time. The suffragette movement was gaining a good traction during that time, and there were a number of wars and crises events like the Bosnian crises there that were leading to the outbreak of World War I, which took place in 1914, several years later. The midpoint of any retrograde cycle is when that planet aligns with the sun. When it's an outer planet like Mars, it will do so by opposition. And it was during this 1909 period that opposition, which was the 24th of September, when Mars was 0 degrees Aries and the sun was 0 degrees of Libra, that was stimulating the cardinal world axis. And whenever the cardinal world axis is being stimulated, it creates worldwide events. So you see how relative that is to the start of World War I, which was a few years later. This was an inception point, a seeding time for what took place later. Also very interesting in my research, Adolf Hitler was 20 years old at the time and had been living in Vienna for more than a year. His savings were exhausted and he had no source of income. So for several months he was homeless. And it is written that that intensified his will, his drive to follow the life path that he did. And that's exactly what Mars in Aries retrograde is about: stoking the engine, intensifying the drive, intensifying the will to go into, it's a check-in with yourself, to go in the direction of whatever will transpire after the retrograde is over with. So very interesting there. 1941, World War II was in full force at that time. Pearl Harbor happened, and by the end of 1941, the USA finally joined the war. So again, very relevant. 1988, Mars was not making the dynamic transits that it is for 2020. So we don't have quite the same kind of thing going on for that. But again, inception, what was seeding, what was launching, or, what was brand new at the time. Well, digital cell phones were invented. Prozac was invented. That's a damping down of the instinctual self, or the primal self, or the libido. The abortion pill as well too. So again, a sterilization piece here. Okay, so that they make sense for the Mars in Aries retrograde cycle. In 2020, what do we have going on for this year? Well, we have a lot of action. 1909. Yes, a small group of activists organized and founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Again, that's a huge organization today, and it's been very fired up in 2020. Why? The George Floyd murder, which triggered all of the protests and movements, and the Black Lives Matter movement here, addressing systemic racism being systemic racism being a Capricorn archetype here. So we see how relevant that is to today. Other things that have been occurring during this transit, of course, we have COVID-19 shaping reality at its peak during the 2 peaks of the Mars cycle that I had on the screen earlier here. Just a couple of days ago, Kamala Harris was chosen to be Biden's running mate for vice president, and this is a historic nomination for a mixed race female for one of the highest offices, political offices of the USA. Also during Mars in Aries, China has passed security legislation furthering its overtake of Hong Kong. So we see how important this Mars in Aries cycle is to the shaping of reality and to the new battles that we face. So there's a lot going on right now on the planet. Mars trigger points for 2020, 2021. We have Chiron in Aries and Eris, the goddess of discord, in Aries. And we have Pallas, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. So Mars is forming dynamic aspects to all of those points. And you see on the screen, I have a lot of dates here. Each one of these are trigger points for taking the action forward. And so we have Chiron brings up the unfinished business, the unresolved. And so that is refestering the wound, and certainly refestering the wound of systemic racism, something that is long overdue to come to an end. Capricorn archetype, it is the archetype of time. And when Pluto comes to Capricorn, it is the ending of a whole reality and the starting of a new one. It's an overlay pattern here. Again, that sets the karmic or fatedness of circumstances into play. And of course, Chiron also is a signature for scapegoating and victimization, and certainly marginalized people feel very scapegoated by the system, and most of us feel victimized by the way governments are being run and so forth. So we see that all over. Eris, goddess of discord, she's the angry goddess, and we certainly see a lot of anger and violence on the planet for sure. This firing up. Sometimes anger is a good fuel when it gets you up and out of your seat. Eris, I call her a positive catalyst because she won't let you forget about you. She will fire you up and get you mad and get you angry till you get up out of your chair and do something. So to some extent, she is a positive catalyst. All Eris ever wanted was sharing, caring, and inclusion, and that's all any marginalized faction of society wants, is to be equally represented. Pallas Athena is the warrior goddess, and she is fighting for justice, and certainly there are many inequalities and many injustices being committed every day, so she is doing battle with the reality. Saturn is Mars and Saturn, putting great strain on the system. We have it's an endurance test. Tests of strength happen during this Mars and Saturn. Of course, there's a great deal of frustration. There's a great deal of strain. There's a great deal of depression. Depression is the common significator for all of us, a common denominator for all of us right now. Mars and Saturn, it's doing battle with the authority, doing battle with the reality. It calls for exertion, just when you feel that you can't go any further, Mars-Pluto will kick into gear. It's amazing to see what, that someone on their deathbed, how strong the will is to survive. All of these transits, Mars-Pluto, that's an intensified drive to accomplish or attain. Mars-Pluto will not give up. It's compulsive. It is determined to get somewhere. Your soul is determined to get somewhere. The collective soul is determined to get somewhere. Each one of these trigger points that you see on the screen, they are putting another puzzle piece into play. Mars is about the experiential track. And it is experience that informs, and each step of the way, another piece of the puzzle is being dropped into place, another missing key is being found, another step is being taken, another item is being put into place. And this is an orchestration that will continue right through to the end of the year to keep stoking the fire until it is sufficiently stoked in order to be able to face the battle and to accomplish the task, to get something new off the ground. This is for sure. October 14, 2020 is the Mars-Sun superior opposition, and is the midpoint peak of that Mars retrograde cycle. So between now and October 14, we are on a takedown process, we're on an uncovering process, we're on a discovery process, seeing what is not working, on an elimination process of moving out of the way whatever it is that we need to move out of the way that might be our own resistance to seeing what the truth is. Mars Jupiter is keeping it on an escalation curve and making it bigger and bolder. It is a statement for the huge protests that we see. This is making it more formidable. So as you can see, just noting all these dates here, that there is something very important that is underway, and something unfinished that your soul feels is very important for you to confront, to face, to do battle with. Just mentioning that when a planet is in retrograde, it's going to go over those degrees 3 times. And so the completion aspect for the Mars Palace, Mars Jupiter, and Mars Saturn square will complete in the signs of Taurus Aquarius. The retrograde cycle is from September 9 to November 13, but we're already in the throes of whatever the priority work is to be done at this point in time. The Mars quadrature, June 6th and February 1st, these were launch points for this entire Mars in Aries cycle. And so know that things are being set up. It is for you to have some consciousness and to become more aware of what it is that is happening in your life. Here are some keywords on the screen for Mars and Aries. It's fire, it's yang, it's masculine, it's the go, it's the drive planet. It puts passion into action. It is representing the desires of the soul. It's what you desire. And everything with Aries is instinct and impulse and spontaneous and so forth. It's action, assertion, it's self-actualizing. It's quick, it's will into action, it's experiential, right? You know, so it's good when you get fired up about things, and even if it's anger that gets fired up, if you can channel it in the right direction, then you can really get something accomplished. Now, when Mars turns retrograde, this is an intensified subjective review. Any retrograde is to revisit, to rework it, to redo. So the first half of the cycle, whatever gets fired up, when Mars is in retrograde, this is the soul's gut check time. The soul intends here now to shift the orientation from that impulsive or knee-jerk reactionary to a considered or a measured response, to curb the excessive, the blind willfulness, the egocentricity, that reactionary impulse, and to reset instincts to more conscious and deliberate intention setting. It is a taming and a tempering of ego on the run. This is shifting from egocentric orientation to soul-centric. We have ego and soul needing to come onto the same page. It is a regroup for ego and soul. So instincts on review. When Mars is retrograde, it gives you a greater degree of separation between you and it. Mars retrograde is often a time when relationships break up. You can be feeling like you're running out of steam, or that you no longer have passion for being in that relationship or being in that circumstance. Running out of steam. It can be, Mars is built for action and speed, but Capricorn is built for slow and deliberate. So when you have Mars in tension to Capricorn, you have traveling with the brakes on, and even more so when Mars is in retrograde. This is a backing up influence here. And in that backing up, it is a checking in with yourself. Mars in direct motion says, I desire. Mars in retrograde says, wait a minute, do I still desire? And if I desire, it is for you to listen to the instincts and to see if your instincts are shifting. Are instincts saying, don't do that, do it this way instead? Give yourself time to observe, to listen to the feedback that you're getting from yourself, and that will be a prime directive from your soul. What is your soul now that you've had some foray, some experiencing? You know, what is the soul now directing you to do? Give yourself some time to sort it out. I always say that as an Aries, the hardest lesson I've had to learn in terms of quelling my impulsiveness was to count to 10. And if you can count to 10, so much can change in those seconds that you do that. So this is about the soul pulling back the ego, so that the two can realign to the same page. So you can feel this as constriction or restriction. It is a good time for practicing some restraint in terms of that knee-jerk reaction to things. All right, so I've given you a little overview of Mars and being fired up. And as you go through the next few weeks and the next few months and the duration of the year, please do so with your eyes open and pick worthy battles. Thank you.